Welcome to Glass Half Full with Leslie Krongold. She shares her stories, experiences, and knowledge of living and coping with a chronic health condition. Learn about tools and resources and hear inspirational interviews that help you to live a life filled with quality and dignity. With 2 decades of support group leadership, Leslie's ready to help you make lemonade out of life's lemons. Are you ready?
Hello, it's about 5 p.m. on Thursday right now, and I'd like to do a little introduction for my second podcast and my first conversation. Some may call this an interview, but my goal is to make these more casual, conversation. And the first several of these conversations will be with friends of mine. So this conversation is with my friend Laurel Roth Patton. Laurel is a mental health consumer advocate, speaker, and writer. We met about 20 years ago when we were both working for a textbook publisher. We were in different departments, and we actually got to know each other in a shared vanpool experience, and eventually did some collaboration on a work project. So although Laurel and I have very different types of chronic health conditions, I think we've been able to discover much common ground in addition to the foundation of friendship we began many years ago. In our conversation, Laurel shares some of the tools she's gathered during her journey since diagnosis with bipolar condition. Some of these tools include deep breathing and mindfulness, as well as experiences with random acts of kindness. But the first question I posed to Laurel for our recent conversation was, what does glass half full mean to you?
When I think of the term glass half full, I think of the traditional choice between the glass being half full or half empty. And I immediately know which side I'm on because I have always grown up with an optimistic, positive viewpoint. So the glass half full is what comes to mind and suits my way of thinking.
So why do you think you always have been an optimist?
Well, perhaps it started with my mother, who always said she was a Pollyanna, and she would always try to make the best face, put the best face on everything. And I frankly prefer to see the best and to see what could happen with a positive outcome, because why not? The alternative is pretty depressing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a choice. We can all make that choice.
Yeah, my mother, it's funny, I hadn't thought of this. My mother always used to say that she looked at life through rose-colored glasses.
Well, that's funny that you mentioned that, because that's a tool in one of the toolkits I'm going to talk about, where you look at your thoughts and you see if they're coming through rose-colored glasses or gray-colored glasses.
Wasn't that a shame that we're judging gray?
I know. I have thought about that and the whole color symbolism.
They weren't aware of 50 Shades of Grey, obviously.
No. Let's not even go there. But the point is that you should be trying to achieve clear glasses. Although I really like the rosy ones myself, but those can lead to some trouble.
Elton John, didn't he have rose-colored lenses?
He did. Round rose-colored lenses. Yeah. He seemed to do well.
Yeah. Still alive and kicking.
Yeah.
Still making music. Not as good, though. Not as good as that classic, Benny. So, how would you describe times when you've had a glass half empty outlook or perspective? Have you ever?
Oh, yes. I've had major depression during several points of my life. I was first diagnosed with major clinical depression in my early 20s, and it wasn't until decades later that they amended the diagnosis to bipolar disorder. So when I'm at the down end, the depressed end of the bipolar pole, I do see the glass as half empty. The problem is that when I'm really depressed or when I'm really manic, I tend to think that the way I've been looking at things before was false, and that now I'm looking at the way things really are. So when I get really depressed, I'm convinced that that glass half empty is the correct way to look at things.
Mm. So how have you dealt with that?
Well, I take medications for one. I take mood stabilizers. I take one mood stabilizer. And although over the past 15 years since I was diagnosed, we've gone through 27 different medications. Actually, let me backtrack. That's including the various ones that we tried when I was back in my 20s for depression. But overall, I've counted 27 different psych medications that I've taken, most of which have horrible side effects. So I'm very proud that I have a wonderful psychiatrist, or PDoc as they are known in the trade, prescribing doctor, the doctors who basically just see you to give you medication. He will work with me, and together we have managed to whittle down the number of drugs I've been taking daily from perhaps 5 to 1. Anyway, I am so thrilled. I can barely tell you how thrilled I am to only be taking one mood stabilizer a day. And then I also have pills I can take as needed, an anti-anxiety med.
I guess it reminds me of that book, Marbles by Ellen.
Oh, yes.
Ellen Foley?
Ellen Forney.
Forney,
yes.
Right. So is that sort of odyssey, with so many different medications, is that fairly standard for someone with bipolar?
Absolutely. I forget how many Ellen Forney tried, but I know of people that have tried over 40. It's very common. In fact, it's the usual. It's very unusual for somebody to be first put on a medication that works and then they stay with it their entire lives.
So you were diagnosed roughly 15 years ago with bipolar.
Correct.
And so what else have you used as or tried for a coping mechanism? Positive, negative, what else have you explored?
Well, I have tried many, many different things. The most positive ones are the tools that I gained from 2 different programs. One is called dialectical behavior therapy. The dialectical is between acceptance and change, and that's what it comes down to.
That's really interesting, because that is what, as a support group facilitator, I've seen so many people sort of battle with that a real inability to accept that change is necessary.
Yes.
To make their lives better.
Yes.
They want everything to stay the same. Even though they're aging, even though it's a progressive condition, they want to do the same things.
Well, with people with bipolar disorder, it's less that people want to do the same things, because the things they are doing are not working for them and they're in a lot of pain. But they tend to blame the way they're feeling on exterior causes, which may be true. There are a lot of external factors which make things very, very hard. People with bipolar disorder are discriminated against in job seeking and job retention. But there are many, many internal factors that they can do to change it. And some people are stuck in the woe is me. And it's everybody else's fault, has nothing to do with me. And if they can't accept that part of the problem lies with them, then they're not going to be able to make positive changes.
So what kind of positive changes have you made?
Well, they're a constant effort. One of the things we tapped upon were the rose-colored glasses and the gray-colored glasses, which are from a separate set of tools called Laurel. So, of course, because this was called...
So this is not an acronym, right? This is tools for you?
No, this is an acronym, but that's why I was drawn to it.
Oh, she has a folder right in front of me with Laurel, the spelling of her name. Okay. Oh.
And it stands for Learning Affective Understanding for a Rich Emotional Life.
Wow.
And this is something that...
Talk about ironies, huh?
Talk about irony. And when I heard about this, when they asked me if I wanted to join, this is UC Berkeley that organizes this.
Oh, this is not connected to Kaiser?
No, this part is not connected to Kaiser at all.
So let's step back. So
Okay.
You're part of a program at UC Berkeley that meets in Berkeley?
It was a temporary program,
Mm-hmm.
and they may have more.
Was it a study?
It was a study with a very small group of people, and we learned slightly different tools, some overlapping tools from the dialectical behavior therapy model. And we met for a certain amount of time, I believe it was 6 to 8 weeks, and we had a lot of materials, did a lot of homework every week, reported back, and a lot of it, for some reason, I have found more helpful than dialectical behavioral therapy, just because dialectical behavioral therapy has a lot of acronyms and a lot of lists and a lot of things you're supposed to try to do every day, and the homework sheets can be quite overwhelming.
What do you take out of it? How have you changed your routine, your life, and how does it keep you in that more sort of optimistic, rose-colored glasses frame of mind?
Well, one thing that both, I'm going to call them toolboxes because they both contain tools for that to help you remain emotionally stable and centered. I won't say happy because that's not a given in life, but a way to return to your center. And the most important one is mindfulness, which is such a great tool for so many illnesses. Focusing on the present, feeling everything around you, taking it in through all of your senses, tastes, smells, temperature. If I sit out in the backyard and look up at the sky and the clouds and listen to the birds and look at how the trees are changing and the flowers are changing and the seasons are changing, and take deep breaths, it makes the most difference in my life. And one tool that I got from dialectical behavioral therapy that I find the most helpful, that I can sink into in moments where I feel like I can't really handle doing other tools, is the deep breathing. And deep breathing in any way is good, but I found a way they taught us a method of deep breathing called square breathing, which I find very useful for keeping my thoughts on my breath. Because you count, as you're inhaling, you count up 6, and then you hold your breath for 2 beats at the top, and then you exhale 8 and repeat. And for me, this was very comforting because I'd always noticed that I can't inhale as long as I can exhale. And this works. It works perfectly for me. So I was very happy to find something that suited my breathing and that I didn't have to struggle with, that comes naturally. And I find if I just do that and relax into the moment, counting the number of breaths keeps me from thinking about anything else. And it really works for staying in the moment for me. I've done a lot of other meditations, body scan meditations, where you think about each part of the body relaxing slowly. And that's very helpful for me when I do it in a group of people and they're all sitting in chairs. I have to lie down because my feet don't touch the floor. So it's really important to be grounded. Your feet have to touch the floor. But I think, as you know, when you're doing any kind of meditation, thoughts come into your mind and you have to observe them and watch them go and return to empty. And then as other thoughts come in, you don't judge them, but you watch them go. But that takes a lot of effort. And I just find the square breathing and counting the breaths to be a quick fix. And frankly, I like quick fixes. I have to admit.
But there's no downside to this quick fix, right? I mean, no bad side effects. Some people might hyperventilate, but...
No. Well, if it's done in a way that you're hyperventilating, then you have to modify your breathing. If you're finding that when you go up to the 6, you're gasping for breath, and that you can't hold 2 beats before you exhale, then you're not doing it at the right speed. So you do have to work out what's a comfortable speed to work with your breathing. And it can't be a false theoretical number of seconds. It has to be the number of beats that works with your breath. And we use this also in exercise that I do. I do Zumba a lot. I find that very, very healing. And we always close with meditation.
Really? Zumba? So isn't it fast-paced?
It's very fast-paced. But at the end, we always, with very slow music, do a bunch of stretches, some of which are yoga poses. We do the warrior pose. We do the sun salutation. We do arched back. We do the cat and the camel. As well as rolling our shoulders and moving our head slightly to one side. So I think most of the ones that are used in yoga, and I have taken many yoga classes over the years, although that's something I'd really like to do again.
So let's go back to your diagnosis about 15 years ago. Did you ever identify it as a blessing or a curse? Do either of those terms resonate at all for you?
I have a lot to say about both of those terms.
I bet you do.
When I was first diagnosed, I was joyful because it made sense of the decades-long confusion I'd had about what the hell is going on with me. And there were parts that I had kind of just stopped thinking about because they made no sense whatever. But there were points when close friends had said, "Oh, don't mind Laurel, she's just crazy." So I know that some of my behavior must have led them to believe that. And for years I thought, oh, I'm just zany, I'm just whimsical, I'm just fun. But there were times when it went over. There were times when I became very childlike and completely dependent on my friends. I don't think I could have gotten from one place to another without them. They just had to kind of lead me by the hand.
So let me ask you about the role of support groups. So when did you, because 15 years ago, you didn't immediately start attending support groups, did you?
No, I did not. I did not begin attending support groups until my diagnosis, which was in 2002. And I should say a bit more about my diagnosis. I was absolutely thrilled, which is the opposite of many people's reactions to bipolar. Many people are diagnosed with bipolar and simply refuse to believe it. They think their doctors...
Denial.
They're in denial. Mm-hmm. They think their doctors are wrong and their families are wrong. Their families have usually brought them to a doctor unwillingly. And they just think everybody else is wrong. I had been trying during my last manic episode, well, first, I won't say last, my first manic episode, I had become aware that nothing was working out by the end. And I was seeing a psychiatrist who at one point, I brought up questions that were asked by my family, such as, do you think I'm manic? And the psychiatrist's response was, do you feel like yelling at little old ladies on the street? And my response was, no. And he said, then you're not manic. Now, I have a lot of hard feelings toward this doctor because delaying my diagnosis led me to lose my job, for one thing. I could have gotten much quicker treatment if he had just simply referred to me to a free online tool, which anybody can Google, called the Goldberg Mania Questionnaire. And it has 12 to 15 questions, and I scored off the charts on all of them. Similarly, they have a Goldberg Depression Questionnaire, and students, patients I should say, can also rate themselves on depression using the markers on those charts. And it's a much more scientific manner than the manner in which my psychiatrist diagnosed me.
So, can you tell me a little about the role of support groups? What you've gotten out of them, and is it automatic that most people, when they're diagnosed with bipolar, that they do attend a support group? Is it something that's mandatory? Is it something that, some people find value in and some people don't?
It's absolutely not mandatory, and many, many people wish they could go to bipolar support groups, but there simply are none in their area. I have become friends with many, many people with bipolar and other mental health disorders on Facebook, and there are many, many groups, and I go on them since I've been diagnosed for a long period of time and have done a lot of research, and I've become quite knowledgeable about all of the different meds and tools. And so I'm in a good position to be able to help people on these groups who are newly diagnosed. And I consider that a random act of kindness, which is one of the things in the Learning Effective Understanding for a Rich Emotional Life that we are supposed to do. And the wonderful thing, as you probably know, about random acts of kindness is how good you feel when you do them. So it's a two-way street. And helping people on these lines feels very good to me. And in addition, I am able to help people and get help through my in-person weekly bipolar support group at my HMO. But many people do not want to do that. Many people do not want to do therapy. Many people don't want to take meds. Many people don't want to admit that they even have the condition. However, many people who do accept it and do want help can't get the help they need because it is simply not present in their area. And I hear about people from Texas and Kentucky and Iowa, Idaho.
One of
those states. Both of those states. Those I states. Who simply cannot get the help they need. in a similar way that Planned Parenthood has been cut back, mental health care facilities have been cut back. And people have to go from city to city, and it becomes very burdensome, especially for people, for example, people that have had to go on disability don't have any money, they're very poor, and they can't necessarily afford the travel or the child care that they would need to pay to get the travel. It's very, very difficult for them. Another thing is that from the people who are able to get federal disability benefits, it's a huge struggle. I was lucky to be able to get them, but I did not realize how lucky I was until hearing the stories of people who have been rejected, even though they qualify according to what's written on the Social Security application form. They have a long, long list of which conditions make one eligible for disability, and under affective conditions, they have bipolar. It's definitely there. It's something that they say they will take care of. So I don't quite understand the difficulty. But one thing people have mentioned is that their doctors have not been cooperative. They've said, oh, my doctor doesn't have time to fill out a form, or my doctor wouldn't help me with this. And I am shocked. Shocked, I tell you. And I'm so glad that I finally found the right PDoc, or prescribing doctor. He's a doctor who uses the word, instead of compliant, uses the word concordant, which means it's the doctor and the patient that are working out the medications together. Not the doctor saying, you do this, and if you don't, you're not compliant. You're a bad patient. It makes all the difference.
So, Laurel, how did you, I only recently found out that you've been speaking, doing some public speaking.
Ah, yes.
Can you tell me a little about that, how that evolved, and what that means to you? I mean, obviously, it's educational, it's advocacy, but what do you get out of it?
What I get out of it, it's sort of like the random acts of kindness, except bigger. For instance, the last time I spoke, which was at City College, I spoke at 2 classes, and somebody after the second class, who hadn't spoken during the class at all, came up to me and said that he was newly diagnosed with bipolar 1, the same diagnosis that I have, and wanted to talk to me about meds and many, many different things. So I stayed after and spoke to him for about 10 minutes, and it was just great, and it made me feel like I was really giving back, paying it forward. Some of the things that I had learned, some of the tools that other people had given to me, I was able to pay back. I learned about it was that I occasionally I go to a group called DBSA, Depression Bipolar Support Association.
Is that a national group?
Yes, it's a national group and it's peer-led, peer discussions. I don't go too often, but I found out about it from a guest speaker from San Francisco branch of the Mental Health Association of America. And he spoke about his story, and he was recruiting other speakers. And I immediately went up to him and said, I volunteer, because it just sounded great, and I knew I could do it. As a teacher, I don't feel uncomfortable speaking in front of large groups. I've done it enough years. I feel fine about doing it. So I signed up, and there was a 3-week training, actually just 3 weeks, 4 hours a day training period, and then all the rehearsal you wanted on refining your own story, which you had to boil down to a 10-minute story. That was the hardest part. But we rehearsed over and over again. And the story I tell now is something I've just kept with. And I thought about changing it. But the last time I spoke, everybody gave me such positive feedback that I thought, oh, well, might as well leave it if it gets such a good response. But I love doing this. And I have to tell you, it's been so therapeutic. Because when I started doing it, I was coming down from a hypomanic episode, which was, by the way, induced by trying a new ADHD drug, which, as they say, activated me into a hypomanic stage. And the downside of that is always depression. So I was coming up out of this depressive stage, and I needed something desperately to do. So this was the most perfect thing. And it gave me such an instant boost in my self-esteem. It was just amazing. Another thing that I've done on my own that's been very therapeutic, I'm a writer, and I started writing a bipolar memoir. It's taken me years. I started back in 13, which was the last time I had a full-blown manic episode.
So I think we should do this again, and you'll just talk about the writing process.
Sure.
Because I think that can, like I told you, so I think I'd like to interview you later about that.
Perfect.
Sorry for cutting that conversation short. I really do want to find out more about Laurel's writing process, but we had a book club meeting to get to. I'll tell you more about the book club in a future episode. And I also have two other friends actually, working on memoirs about their experiences with a chronic health condition. So I really want to get all three of them, probably not together, but at least in succession, to, hear about what they're all working on and how they came to start a memoir and what the process is like for them. So stay tuned for that in a future podcast. Also, I want you to stay tuned for future conversations that I'm involved in organizing right now. I have a few friends, each with different types of muscular dystrophy, and each one with very different types of coping mechanisms and passions. One is a world traveler, and she has learned a lot and shares what she's learned about traveling with a disability with others. I know her through my support group. And another friend is a sailor. He's an avid sailor, and he has inspired many other people with disabilities to try sailing in a safe environment. There are different organizations that provide that around the country. I'm hoping to have some future conversations with friends who have MS, multiple sclerosis, and one friend I'll be speaking with early next week about cancer. Somebody I practically grew up with. So you'll also meet some of the people I work with, people who, have helped me, different health practitioners or people working in different sort of modalities that I have him, as part of my treatment. And that's in yoga therapy, Pilates, and Qigong. So I invite your comments, questions, and ideas. And the best place to start that conversation, to share your comments, questions, and ideas, is on Facebook. You can find us at facebook.com/glasshalffullonline. So I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Glass Half Full. Leslie invites you to leave a rating and review on iTunes. This helps spread the word to others dealing with chronic health issues. For show notes, updates, and more, visit the website glasshalffull.online. Glasshalffull.online.